The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Gerg Cahiles. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares were mixed on the third trading day of the week. This came after U.S. stocks rose again as companies reported stronger than expected profits. Japan's Nikkei 225 ticked up by about 0.3%. Australia's ASX 200 added roughly 0.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng edged higher by 0.1%. Indonesia's JKSC posted the strongest advance, climbing nearly 0.5%. Meanwhile, South Korea's Kospi slipped by about 0.6%. And India's Nifty showed a little change, down just a fraction. In the currency markets, the dollar saw modest moves, strengthening slightly against the yen and Australian dollar, while slipping against most Asian currencies, including the Korean won, Thai baht, and Singapore dollar. Gold and oil prices declined, with West Texas Intermediate crude falling over 1%, while cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum also slipped modestly. Asia faces growing pressure from the global trade war, and the region's export-driven economies must adapt fast. Asian Development Bank President Masato Kanda says countries should diversify trade partners, stimulate domestic demands, and maintain sound economic policies to stay resilient. While Asian economies are stronger than before, Kanda warns that rising tariffs, particularly from the United States, continue to erode competitiveness. Vietnam, Thailand, and China have been among the most affected, with sharp increases in import costs due to U.S. trade policies. Kanda also points to heightened market volatility as a compelling reason for economies to broaden their growth strategies. China says it will not kneel to U.S. pressure, issuing its strongest response yet to President Donald Trump's escalating trade war. In a video message posted online, China's foreign minister slams the U.S. for what he calls economic bullying and urges other countries to stand together against unilateral tariffs. The message warns that bowing to a bully is like drinking poison to quench thirst, saying appeasement only invites more pressure. China ends the statement by saying history has proven that compromise doesn't guarantee peace, and asserts that it will defend its interests firmly.
China won't kneel down, because we know standing up for ourselves keeps the possibility of cooperation alive, while compromise snuffs it out. China won't back down, so the voices of the weak will be heard, bullying will be stopped, and justice will not disappear from the world.
Global trade tensions are hitting close to home as tariffs shake U.S. port operations. The Port of Oakland is tracking a rise in blanked sailings or canceled ship routes. Over 70% of its trade flows from Asia. Officials say they are prepared but cautious. The trend is national. The Port of LA expects cargo from Asia to fall 35% next week. Shipping giant Maersk maintains all its trans-Pacific sailings, even as U.S. tariff policies continue to disrupt global trade flows. The company says customers shipping from China to the United States are taking mixed approaches. Some continue as normal, others reroute to different markets, while some hold off shipments while waiting for clarity on tariffs. This comes as the Trump administration imposes a 10% base duty on most imports and a sweeping 145% tariff on goods from China. BRICS warn against trade fragmentation and fading multilateralism. Starting as Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, BRICS has expanded to include Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Iran. In a meeting in Rio de Janeiro Tuesday, the members backed a unified stance on tariffs, but stopped short on full agreement on a joint communique. Brazil, the current chair, issued a solo statement that did not name the common source of global concern.
We're working to make compatible each of these groups' decisions for the declaration of the heads of state and the final declaration. In regards to commercial and tariff issues, there was absolute consensus among all countries. What moves us is the national interest in all relations. We always seek an international relationship based on international law and the rules established by all the institutions. This is what we will continue to promote and debate. We're always open to dialogue with any country bilaterally as we have traditionally done.
The White House and Amazon moved to ease tensions after reports that the tech giant was considering displaying U.S. tariff costs next to product prices on its site. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt initially described the move as a hostile act, raising concerns that such a display could stir public opposition to administration's trade strategy.
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American.
U.S. President Donald Trump personally called Amazon founder Jeff Bezos following the report and later said the matter had been resolved.
Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly, and he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
Americans are growing increasingly skeptical of President Donald Trump's economic policies just as he hits his 100th day back in office. That's according to a new Reuters poll. The survey shows steady approval at 42%, but a higher 59% of respondents say they disapprove of his handling of the rising cost of living. Trump won his comeback bid last November amid criticisms of inflation under then-President Joe Biden. But while inflation has cooled slightly, many Americans feel it hasn't fallen fast enough. His controversial trade and tariff policies are also under fire, with more Americans now questioning their impact on prices and broader economy.
And look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything. You know, you don't have the drop in fuel and energy and oil like we did. I took it from maybe $3.20, maybe more than that, down into a much lower number. When you have that kind of a drop, you're not going to have inflation.
Next.
China probably will eat those tariffs, but at 145, they basically can't do much business with the United States. And they were making from us $1 trillion a year. They were ripping us off like nobody's ever ripped us off. And by the way, we have other countries that were just as bad.
Meta Platforms is chasing AI dominance with a new application programming interface. In Meta's first AI Developers Conference, it launched the latest version of the Llama API. Main selling point is that with one line of code, developers can build on Llama, one-upping rivals OpenAI, Google, and cheaper Chinese models like DeepSeek.
Our goal from the beginning for Llama 4 API has been it should be the fastest and easiest way to build with Llama. Not only that, as you saw, the derivative models, it should be the best way to customize these models. And going one step further, you should be able to take these custom models with you wherever you want. No lock-in ever.
Pricing is unclear, but rollout starts now as a limited preview for select customers. The company bets openness will draw business and boost platform engagement. Meta also teased a paid AI assistant and major cost savings. Zuckerberg says competition will unlock smarter custom-built AI.
I mean, part of the open source vision is just this belief that there are going to be many different AIs. So if another model, like if DeepSeek is better, or if Quen is better at something, then now as developers, you have the ability to take kind of the best parts of the intelligence from the different models and produce exactly what you need, which I think is going to be very powerful.
We have to pause for a few reminders. The biggest business stories from around the country are up next. Keep it here on the Business Brief, only on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. We're back on Business Brief. Global credit watcher Fitch Ratings affirms its BBB credit rating for the Philippines. The details from our correspondent in Pasay City, Sujin Kim. Sujin, go ahead.
Yes, Gerg, Fitch Ratings reaffirmed the Philippines' BBB credit rating with a stable outlook, citing the country's effective inflation control, sound macroeconomic fundamentals, and resilient growth amid escalating global uncertainties. The credit watchdog noted the country's solid domestically driven growth, projecting the economy to expand by 5.6% in 2025, powered by infrastructure spending, strong services exports, and remittance-fueled private consumption. Over the medium term, growth is expected to exceed 6%, more than double the BBB median. Fitch also highlighted the government's success in taming inflation, with March figures easing to 1.8% year-on-year. Finance Secretary Ralph Recto hailed the affirmation as a powerful vote of confidence. According to Fitch, the country's low 17% average tariff rate and domestically oriented growth profile have helped insulate from escalating U.S. trade barriers. The agency also pointed to Philippine exporters' potential gains from global commodity price declines and trade redirections. In terms of fiscal performance, Fitch recognized the government's progress in consolidation efforts. It projects the general government budget deficit to slide to 3.6% of GDP by 2026, supported by strong tax collections and spending efficiencies. While general government debt is expected to hover at 54 to 55% of GDP, Fitch expects a declining debt path driven by strong nominal GDP growth and narrowing fiscal gaps. BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. also welcomed the rating reaffirmation, saying the central bank remains committed to managing inflation and fostering sustainable growth. With all three major rating agencies, Fitch, S&P Global, and R&I maintaining investment-grade assessments for the Philippines, the country is well positioned to access affordable funding and attract capital needed for critical social and economic programs. And those are latest updates from Pasay City. Back to you, Gerg.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. The Philippines maintains a clean record on intellectual property protection, a key factor for investor confidence in trade relations. For the 12th straight year, the country stays off the U.S. government's Special 301 watch list, which tracks how well nations protect intellectual property rights. The U.S. Trade Representative recognized the Philippines for creating the DTI's e-commerce bureau to combat fake goods online, and for the work of the Intellectual Property Office in public education and strengthening judicial capacity. But the report still flags concerns over counterfeit medicines, citing the Philippines as one of the main sources of these dangerous products. Let's take another look at our top stories. Finance Secretary Ralph Recto backs off from a proposal to raise capital gains, donors, and estate taxes, saying higher than expected revenues in the first quarter have given the government fiscal breathing room. Recto clarifies that the administration is not pursuing new taxes or additional burdens for Filipinos, citing a robust fiscal position and strong collections so far this year. Instead, the Department of Finance will focus on boosting non-tax revenues to hit collection targets and maintain public services without raising tax pressure on households and businesses. Japan and the Philippines boosting defense and economic ties. Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru is in Manila for a two-day official visit. Following talks with President Bongbong Marcos in Malacanang, Ishiba announced Japan and the Philippines have begun discussions on a potential information security agreement which will enable exchanges of confidential information.
安全保障につきましては近年 I hope that our two nations will continue to closely communicate with each other to oppose attempts to change the status quo in the East and South China Seas by force or coercion, and to realize a free and open Indo-Pacific based on the rule of law.
The two leaders also discussed the impact of U.S.-China trade tensions. Ishiba says he would heed the concerns of Japanese companies in the Philippines to find solutions. Tomorrow, Labor Day, is a regular holiday under Proclamation number 727. Work and classes are suspended nationwide. For those required to work, the Department of Labor has set wage rules. Employees on the holiday will still be paid 100% of their wage. Double pay applies for those working during the holiday. Overtime workers get an additional 30% on top of their double pay. Rest day is considered overtime on holiday.
Magbigay ng ating konting parangal sa ating mga manggagawa. Labor Day celebration ay maging libre ang sakay sa MRT 3, LRT 1 and 2. Ito ay mula April 30 hanggang May 3. Ito ay bilang counting pagkilala sa sakripisyo at ang kontribusyon ng ating mga manggagawa. Hindi lamang sa ating ekonomiya, hindi sa ating ekonomiya. Happy Labor Day.
We're taking a short break. This is Brief. We'll be right back. The Japanese Prime Minister's visit coincides with his country's participation in the ongoing Balikatan exercises. The latest in the drills from Francis Folbe.
An air missile was launched from BRP Jose Rizal. Live fire gunnery drills at sea to improve naval crew readiness and reinforce tactical proficiency. Allied vessels of naval forces from the US, the Philippines, and Japan performing sail formation. Participating forces also carrying out casualty evacuation procedures at sea, honing life-saving skills. These are all part of the recently concluded multilateral maritime event of Balikatan 40-2025. 6 days of complex and coordinated naval operations that underscore the growing strength and unity of allied and partner nations in the Indo-Pacific region. The MME was held from April 24 to 29 and spanned the waters from the vicinity of Subic Bay up to the Northern Luzon Command Joint Operational Area. Meanwhile, allied forces from the AFP, U.S. Marine Corps, and Australian Defense Force showcased their combined strength and operational synergy during a large-scale counter-landing and live-fire exercise in Rizal, Palawan. In a maritime interdiction scenario, the Philippine Navy assets, including the multipurpose attack crafts and fast attack interdiction craft, engaged and neutralized simulated seaborne intrusion. The Philippine Air Force FA-50 and the United States Pacific Air Force B-1B bomber aircraft, F-16 and F-18 also flew over the West Philippine Sea for a bilateral air patrol. The activity aims to strengthen collaboration and enhance interoperability between the air forces of both countries. Another highlight of the ongoing Balikatan is the air and missile defense training. Participants collaborated to sense and engage targets, employing the Philippine Air Force Spider Defense System. U.S. forces demonstrated several counter and manned aerial system technologies. The activity utilized the Marine Air Defense Integrated System, or MADIS, a U.S. Marine Corps air defense system designed to track, identify, and neutralize threats, especially drones and low-flying aircraft. Procurement of some of the new U.S. military assets are underway.
It's a very big help for us, together with their high equipment, because sooner or later we'll acquire same system for the integration of the system. Is very particular and very need in our capability.
The Balikatan 40-2025 reiterate that the joint drills are not aimed at any particular country, despite China's continuous aggression in the West Philippine Sea. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon rides the various trains in the metropolis on the first day of free rides being offered by the government to celebrate Labor Day. The free rides will be offered until May 3rd. Dizon estimates that the over 800,000 commuters to benefit daily will outweigh the revenue loss.
Almost 10 million pesos a day. So siguro kulang 40 million ang LRT 120 pesos. Which kung isipin mo naman, sa laki ng hinahawa ng ating mga manggagawa, ng ating mga pasahero, maliit na bagay yan.
Dizon asserts they will continue to improve train facilities to better serve the public.
Magdadagdag tayo ng mga high-tech na CCTV cameras. At magdadagdag din tayo ng security presence. So magpapayag tayo ng sistema na meron tayong mga carousel o turnstile na hindi ka na kailangan bumili ng ticket, no? Telepono mo lang, yung Gcash mo sa telepono, itatap mo, pwede na. Kung meron kang credit card, pwede na.
Philippine shares returns to 6,300 level as it ended in the positive territory for the second straight day. The PSE index ended higher by almost 2% to close at 6354, finishing the day as the best performer in Asia. Among sectoral indices, only services and mining and oil ended in the red, with property rising the most at more than 3%. Advancers outpaced decliners 100-77. Total value turnover reached 8.3 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks ended in the green, with Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company rising the most at more than 6%. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 55.96 against the greenback, strengthening from the previous close of 56.50. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.